Welcome to Mr. InfoPoints. Today we are going to discuss one of the most overlooked yet devastating dangers on American roads: driving under fatigue. Every year, thousands of lives are cut short, and countless families are left grappling with grief and loss because someone chose to get behind the wheel while exhausted. Many drivers believe they are fine as long as they've slept a little, or they assume that a short drive won't hurt, or that caffeine and determination are enough to keep them alert. The reality is far more dangerous. Fatigue impairs judgment, slows reaction time, reduces attention, and increases the likelihood of catastrophic crashes, making it one of the deadliest and most preventable risks on the road. In this report, we will explain the science behind fatigue, how law enforcement and technology address the issue, the real human cost, and the practical steps every driver can take to prevent tragedy. Across the United States, long-haul trucking, public transit, and late-night commuting present unique fatigue-related challenges. Commercial drivers often work extended shifts, sometimes exceeding 12 or 14 hours on the road. Young workers and students may drive late after exhausting days filled with work, study, and personal commitments. Bus drivers carry the added responsibility of dozens of passengers, where one moment of inattention can lead to a large-scale disaster. Federal and state regulations exist to manage hours of service, but enforcement varies, and the culture of push-through persists in many industries. Fatigue is deceptive. It does not produce the obvious warning signs that alcohol does. Unlike DUI, you cannot see a blood alcohol percentage on a dashboard. The effects accumulate silently: microsleeps, blurred focus, delayed reaction times, until tragedy strikes. To illustrate the true consequences, let us follow a story inspired by multiple real events, blending different scenarios to reflect the diversity of fatigue-related crashes. On a chilly November morning outside Chicago, 24-year-old Alex, a college student who also works part-time in retail, drove home after a 14-hour shift. Simultaneously, Mark, a 32-year-old truck driver transporting goods across state lines, had been on the road since 5 a.m. operating heavy machinery through foggy stretches of highway. Meanwhile, Rosa, a 50-year-old city bus driver, had been managing a double shift, running late routes to cover for staffing shortages. Each believed they could manage the drive, each underestimated the danger, and each carried the potential for disaster. 5 minutes into Alex's drive, his eyelids grew heavy. He had tried drinking coffee and listening to loud music, but his brain was signaling exhaustion. At the same time, Mark's truck drifted subtly across lanes as a microsleep overtook him for 3 critical seconds. Rosa, meanwhile, found herself missing a stop sign as her attention faltered after hours of continuous focus on traffic and passenger safety. Across different roads, the consequences converged. Alex veered into the opposite lane while texting a quick message to a friend. Mark's semi-truck clipped a guardrail, causing debris to fly into oncoming traffic, and Rosa's bus drifted into a small intersection just as a cyclist was passing. In seconds, these individual choices and circumstances created catastrophic crashes, each leaving a trail of injury, death, and irreparable trauma. Fatigue affects the human body in profound ways. The brain's frontal cortex, responsible for decision-making, judgment, and reaction, functions at a fraction of its alertness when sleep-deprived. Research shows that being awake for 24 hours impairs performance similarly to having a blood alcohol concentration of 0.1%, above the legal DUI limit. Reaction time slow, situational awareness declines, and lane-keeping ability deteriorates. Microsleeps, brief lapses of 2 to 10 seconds, often occur without warning, enough time for a vehicle traveling at highway speed to cover the length of a football field. Unlike alcohol, fatigue does not produce slurred speech or the smell of impairment, making detection on the road difficult for law enforcement. Yet the danger is just as real. Federal regulations exist to mitigate these risks, especially for commercial drivers. The Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration mandates hours of service rules. Truck drivers cannot drive more than 11 hours after 10 consecutive hours off duty, with weekly limits to prevent cumulative fatigue. Bus drivers are subject to similar limits under state transit regulations, designed to ensure rest between shifts. For non-commercial drivers, no such strict regulations exist, leaving millions vulnerable to the hidden risks of sleep deprivation. Many drivers ignore warning signs, relying on stimulants, caffeine, or brief naps that cannot replace proper rest. Awareness campaigns highlight the hazards, yet fatigue remains a silent killer on America's roads. When crashes occur, law enforcement investigates them in the same thorough manner as other collisions. Fatigue-related crashes often involve careful reconstruction of events, witness interviews, vehicle telematics, and analysis of driver logs. Toxicology reports are sometimes requested to rule out drugs or alcohol as additional factors. In the legal context, fatigue may be considered negligent operation, especially for commercial drivers who violate hours of service regulations. Penalties can include fines, suspension or revocation of licenses, and in cases of fatalities, criminal charges such as vehicular manslaughter or reckless driving. Employers may also face liability if negligence in scheduling contributed to a fatigued driver being on the road. Unlike alcohol, fatigue does not carry an obvious illegal limit, but courts and insurance companies increasingly recognize it as a factor in preventable accidents. The human cost is staggering. In Alex's crash, he survived with minor injuries, but the young cyclist he struck suffered fatal trauma. Mark's semi-truck collision caused the deaths of 2 drivers in oncoming traffic, while Rosa's bus accident resulted in multiple passenger injuries and the death of a pedestrian. Families were shattered, communities were stunned, and all 3 drivers faced legal, financial, and emotional consequences that would follow them for life. Alex dropped out of college, Mark struggled with PTSD and guilt, and Rosa faced permanent suspension from driving. These stories remind us that the cost of fatigue is measured not only in dollars but in lives lost, careers destroyed, and grief that lasts forever. Preventing fatigue-related crashes requires understanding and action. Drivers must recognize early warning signs: frequent yawning, heavy eyelids, blurred vision, difficulty focusing, lane drifting, and missing road signs. Even slight delays in reaction time can be deadly at highway speeds. Practical measures include prioritizing sleep, taking regular breaks, sharing driving responsibilities on long trips, avoiding long stretches after night shifts, and resisting the temptation to push through exhaustion. Caffeine may provide temporary alertness, but it is no substitute for rest. Scheduled naps of 20 to 30 minutes can be effective if a driver is already fatigued, but they must be planned before reaching dangerous levels of sleep deprivation. Technology also plays a role. Many commercial vehicles are now equipped with lane departure warnings, collision avoidance systems, and driver alertness monitoring, which can detect steering patterns indicative of fatigue. Rideshare companies and employers encourage rest breaks and limit shift hours. Public awareness campaigns target high-risk populations: young adults, shift workers, long-haul drivers, and professional bus operators. These campaigns use real-life stories, graphic simulations, and statistical evidence to convey the severity of fatigue-related crashes. Education is critical. Families, schools, and employers must communicate the risks consistently. Young drivers should be taught that driving while drowsy can be as deadly as driving drunk. Employers must enforce regulations, provide adequate staffing to prevent overwork, and support a culture that prioritizes safety over speed or productivity. Communities can offer alternative transportation options during high-risk times. Late-night buses, rideshare discounts, and carpooling incentives. The combination of awareness, enforcement, and practical solutions significantly reduces the likelihood of accidents. Returning to the blended story, Alex, Mark, and Rosa's accidents triggered extensive investigations. Traffic reconstruction experts analyzed vehicle speed, impact angles, and braking patterns. Witnesses described erratic driving and moments where the drivers appeared to nod off. Insurance companies categorized the incidents as preventable, resulting in substantial premium increases. Civil lawsuits added another layer of responsibility. Families sought restitution for medical costs, funeral expenses, and emotional trauma. Each driver faced the realization that a single moment of fatigue could ripple outward, affecting dozens of people beyond their immediate surroundings. Fatigue-related crashes are alarmingly common. National Highway Traffic Safety Administration data indicate that drowsy driving contributes to thousands of fatal crashes each year, with the true numbers likely higher due to underreporting. The risk is highest among drivers aged 16 to 29, commercial drivers, shift workers, and those driving between midnight and 6 a.m. Factors such as sleep disorders, medications, and chronic sleep deprivation exacerbate the danger. Unlike alcohol or drug impairment, fatigue can accumulate over days, meaning a seemingly rested driver may already be impaired due to cumulative sleep debt. Practical strategies for drivers include planning trips around sleep schedules, avoiding driving during circadian low points, early morning or late at night, keeping the vehicle well ventilated, staying hydrated, and engaging in brief physical activity during stops. Long-haul drivers should rotate shifts if possible and take advantage of rest areas for mandatory breaks. Bus operators should have secondary staff for relief during extended routes. Families and friends can intervene if a driver appears drowsy, offering alternatives such as a ride, a temporary nap, or postponing travel. Even a small intervention can prevent tragedy. The societal cost is vast. Beyond loss of life, fatigue-related crashes strain emergency services, healthcare systems, and the insurance industry. Communities bear economic losses through property damage, medical expenses, lost productivity, and the ripple effects of grief and trauma. Preventable accidents erode public trust in road safety and amplify the emotional toll on emergency responders, who witness the aftermath repeatedly. Unlike more visible road risks, fatigue is often underestimated, and cultural attitudes that glorify endurance, late-night work, or powering through exacerbate the problem. Technology and policy continue to evolve. Fatigue detection systems are being integrated into semi-trucks and commercial buses, measuring steering input, eye tracking, and head movements to alert drivers. Autonomous driving assistance may eventually intervene when human attention lapses. Companies encourage monitoring systems that prevent employees from exceeding safe driving hours. Public education campaigns emphasize the real stories behind the numbers, combining vivid case studies with practical tips. Research demonstrates that sustained awareness, organizational support, and technological interventions reduce crash frequency and severity. Fatigue cannot be entirely eliminated, but its effects can be mitigated. The responsibility lies with each driver, employer, family member, and community. Before driving, ask, am I fully alert? Have I slept enough? If there is any doubt, delay the trip, rest, or seek an alternative. Recognize that a moment's convenience is never worth a life. Intervene when others show signs of drowsiness. Promote a culture that values alertness over speed and safety over deadlines. Every conscious choice to rest is a choice that protects lives. After the incidents, Alex, Mark, and Rosa faced profound consequences. Alex's college career stalled, and he engaged in advocacy for young drivers, sharing his story to prevent others from making similar mistakes. Mark took time off, pursued counseling for trauma, and spoke publicly about the risks of long-haul fatigue. Rosa underwent mandatory retraining and participated in campaigns to highlight professional driver safety. All three transformed personal tragedy into public awareness, yet the losses endured by victims' families remain permanent. These stories remind us that prevention is infinitely better than remediation. Public policy supports prevention. Enforcement of hours of service laws, fatigue detection technology, and educational campaigns all contribute to reducing risk. Employers play a critical role in scheduling, staffing, and fostering a culture that discourages unsafe driving practices. Communities can support alternatives such as rideshare programs, late-night public transit, and peer awareness initiatives. Media campaigns that combine real-life stories with statistical evidence reinforce the invisible dangers of fatigue. Ultimately, the most effective interventions are those that integrate law, technology, education, and personal responsibility. For individuals, actionable steps are clear. Prioritize sleep, recognize early warning signs, avoid driving during periods of extreme tiredness, plan breaks on long trips, and intervene if someone else appears fatigued. Employers should enforce rest policies, provide alternative scheduling, and implement technology to monitor alertness. Schools and families can educate young drivers early, promoting habits that reduce fatigue-related risk. Communities can invest in infrastructure and services that provide safe alternatives for those at risk. The cost of inaction is measured not in statistics alone but in lives lost, families affected, and futures destroyed. As you reflect on these facts, ask yourself, is any deadline, task, or shortcut worth the irreversible consequences of fatigue behind the wheel? The answer is always no. Every driver has the power to prevent tragedy through conscious choices, self-awareness, and community support. Plan your trips wisely, respect your body's need for rest, and intervene with compassion when others are at risk. Together, awareness and action can make America's roads safer. Subscribe to the channel for more facts, real stories, and practical guidance that can save lives. Together, one slow, sensible mile at a time. This has been Mr. InfoPoints. We aim to inform, to change behavior, and to save lives through clear facts, real stories, and practical guidance. Drive responsibly, stay alert, and protect not only yourself but everyone sharing the road with you. Arriving safely is always the most important destination. Stay awake, stay vigilant, and we will meet again in our next episode with another vital topic that affects everyday life.